Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Red Tinted Glasses podcast. Still no goals to speak about, Callum, but a point is on the board. Do we celebrate it? Do we reflect badly on it? Well, I guess you'll find out over the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour on this podcast. But it's Wednesday evening, Callum, so maybe a few days to calm down off the back of that result of the weekend.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, when I was preparing notes for today, I was then just brought it all flooding back. So, it might have been a better thing to get it out of the way early because now I'm just miserable on the Wednesday instead. But leaving the game, I thought, clean sheet at least. If we're going to take anything from it. Oh God, it wasn't good, was it? I think the two options you gave there, it's certainly going to be the latter in this episode. Will it ever get better, Glenn?
Well, it hopefully will get better come the weekend. I think, though, on reflection, whilst the weekend felt frustrating, certainly as you left Pittodrie walking up Merkland Road, there was signs that there is a team there. We created more than we had in the previous league games. I think we have to take that as a positive. I thought Stuart Armstrong looked good. I thought Jesper Carlson looked good as well. I think probably sums up how easily pleased we are right now. That one of the biggest cheers in that first half was how elegantly he took the ball down from, I can't remember if it was Alfie Dorrington's crossfield pass, but there was another one where Dorrington put it through the middle. Carlson takes it around the keeper. Maybe should do better. But I felt it kind of sums up the game how easily pleased we were just by a few impressive touches and little bits of skill.
Yeah, when the best ball carrier in world football, Stuart Armstrong, took the ball for a little run, I thought, oh my God, this is nice, isn't it? This is lovely. And when you mentioned those two were out last night, Tuesday night, in Da Vinci's restaurant in Aberdeen, hopefully coming up with a plan to save our season. I was there and Jesper Carlson walked in. I thought, oh, he's sitting by himself. That's sad, just moved to a new country. And then in comes Stuart Armstrong. I thought, oh, that's lovely. So hopefully they've come up with something for this weekend to save our season. There was positives. I suppose, as you say, there was a lot of chances, or not a lot of chances, some chances, more chances than what we're used to. But on the flip side, there was still so much ponderous possession where, the balls are getting passed between the two centre-backs and they're not even punching it across to each other, across the back line. And, Dennis getting the ball in the middle of the park and slowly looking side to side. He can't play against Motherwell, surely. We went into the game against Livingston talking about our starting 11. Neither of us had those two as our preferred. However, perhaps maybe in our expected. Played it again, and it didn't work, did it, Glenn?
It didn't, and I can't believe we sat here and did our team lineups for the week ahead. You got it right with Graham Shinney, being there in midfield. I called Alfie Dorrington coming back into the team. I don't think either of us or many of us in the Aberdeen support expected at all to see Sivert Nielsen line up. And I mean, probably actually the bigger surprise was to see 7 changes in the lineup in total. Were you more surprised by how many changes Jimmy made or by Sivert Nielsen starting?
That's tough because I was surprised by both, to be honest. In fact, no, I wasn't actually especially surprised by Nielsen starting. I was just more disappointed that he was. I was surprised by 7 changes. I wasn't sure if Yamfi especially was going to come in, given I know they said in the pre-match that he was he was fit, but I didn't expect him to maybe start given how little match time he's had. The fact Dorrington came in as well kind of makes, unless there was an injury, the run of Jack Milne it makes it all a bit more confusing because you would have thought now, given Milne's included in the European squad, you think he's probably going to play unless Tobers comes back in. And then the fact we're heading towards those games now, and then he comes out and Dorrington comes in. Very odd, but regardless, was quite happy to see Alfie Dorrington in the starting 11. I wasn't really surprised that Kevin Nisbet came in and started, given his goal scoring tendencies last season and how much we struggled in front of goal. Not that it really changed, but I was quite shocked to see 7 changes. It'll be interesting to see going into the game against Motherwell how many there is this time round, because I believe that the P&J sort of spoke to him about, has that chopping and changing in midfield affected things? And I hope there is more chopping and changing in the midfield going into this weekend. But it would be nice to get a settled pairing, because I don't think it is helping.
I think you're right, and I think if we look at, we could speak through most of the changes and the quality or potential lack of that they brought, but the midfield in particular is the one that is so glaring, because you're starting 2 defensive-minded midfielders, and you spoke about it, about Shinnie being in there to be that disruptive midfielder, give us a bit of bite, but there was never a need for 2. We saw it as the game progressed when we made the changes in midfield. Stuart Armstrong, the first of those subs, coming on and really grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck, and as you said, making that marauding run forward. We also had Ante Palaversa, Leighton Clarkson, and the urgency that they brought. And Palaversa finally, testing the keeper with a long-range shot. I know Jensen did in the first half. I know he didn't get the corner for it either, but we were finally, spraying the ball wide, getting the ball with better effect into the box, just not having anybody there. So for me, frustrating that a midfield combo that we regularly see not working was persisted with. So I agree. I would like to see that changed when we come to speak about the weekend against Motherwell. But you mentioned Gyamfi there making his debut. What did you make of his performance?
I was really impressed with him. He's much more sort of big, physical than I expected, I think. He impressed me on that left-hand side. I think really early on, he seemed to link up really well with Carlson, and then we almost stopped playing it down that left-hand side, which was kind of an odd one. But it gave me hope that could be a really good partnership for us down that left-hand side. He looked good defensively. He looked good in the air for not being. I don't think he is even 6 foot, but he looked good in the air, certainly. And I think I maybe had concerns about him being able to deal with physicality over here. Of course, we expected him to be bombing forward, but he looks ready for it, which is certainly encouraging, especially since he is such at a young age. How many times do you see players come over and they need to sort of fill out and adapt? He looks ready to go straight in, and he looks comfortable defensively as well, which I think was one of the concerns when he was signed from Schalke. There was sort of talk that he needs to work on his defensive game, and of course, he wasn't overly tested against Livingston. With all due respect to Livingston, unfortunately, I have to say that. But he looked like he should be steady, and that'll hopefully help us if we can get a consistent player at left back, and we're not chopping and changing, and also with the balance of him actually being left-footed rather than one of Nicky Devlin or Jensen being over there.
Yeah, and I think you're right. He didn't really get tested defensively, albeit Livingston did test us defensively overall, and probably unlucky not to take the lead in that first half when Tete Yengi's first half header was excellently blocked by Mo Silla. Again, Mo Silla, who we identified pre-match as being a player that can dictate large periods of the game, and I thought he did that for Livingston. I also thought for large periods of the game we really signed the wrong Yengi brother, because Tete Yengi, I don't remember him being that fast from the last time Livi played us, but I thought he certainly caused us problems at times as well. Obviously, I've been champion a little bit for Alfie Dorrington to come back into the team. I know he had a nervous mistake. Was it in the first half? No, sorry, it would have been in the second half. But overall, were you more impressed by Alfie compared to Jack Milne, or any thoughts on that?
To be honest, it was. I don't think if it was Jack Milne, it would have altered the game at all. I was impressed with. In the first half, it seemed to happen a lot more. Dorrington stepping out from the back and going for those sort of those long direct balls in behind. I was certainly impressed with how much he's able to do that, and I think that's probably the reason I would prefer him to Jack Milne. He's just got a bit more about his game with that. Also, he's pretty quick as well, which is handy. And I would like to see Donington continue on in the team, because when he carries it out from the back and breaks that line, it makes something happen rather than this ponderous back and forth amongst the defence. Just unfortunately, for whatever reason, there wasn't quite so much of that in the second half. But Alfie Donington certainly impressed me with his ability on the ball anyway.
Yeah, and I think going back to what Mark's comment here on Gyamfi about the performance he put in for the first 40 minutes, but showing signs of him maybe not being match fit yet, I think we could also apply that to Jesper Carlson, who, again, as we've already said, showed glimpses of what he can do. Certainly one to try hard, that free kick in the first half. Great that he wants to step up and take them in that instance, just hopefully he doesn't balloon them over the bar every other week. But looks lively, and there were certainly at times in that first half where I think if he really clicks into gear, he's far too good for us.
Yeah, it could be seen Pele numbers from Jesper Carlson if he does hit that sort of AZ Alkmaar type form over here. He impressed just with his first touch, for example. There's a couple of times where the ball got played into him and he's just immediately flicking it on, and you can just tell from those sort of instances he is a class above. I think perhaps the chance you mentioned earlier, he maybe should have done better. I think he sort of smashed it when he didn't really need to, just had to focus on getting it on target, and it probably ended up in the back of the net. But I suppose difficult when you're, taking a volley on when you're on the move like that, like he was. But he certainly impressed me, and I hope that him and Gyamfi can click up some kind of partnership, because obviously Carlson's going to want to come inside, and if you've got Gyamfi bombing on round the outside when he maybe is a bit more match fit, then that can certainly cause problems. But yeah, for me, he's got to play every game that he's fit, because, as I said, even just from the little instances, the quick passing and the quick touches, he looks too good to be here. So let's hopefully enjoy him and make the most of him whilst we can, because Lord knows we need the help right now.
It really felt at times in that first half it was like, back to school football days. Just give it to the best player in the team and just hope that they do something. Hopefully they find the back of the net, or ping a ball into the box that takes a ricochet and finds the back of the net. Unfortunately, it didn't. A bit like my darts last night. I couldn't hit a double to save my life. We couldn't hit the back of the net to save our life just now in league football. Topi Keskinan maybe getting a surprise start. Callum, we spoke last week about Nicholas Milanovic on his long trip back from New Zealand. Interestingly enough, he was fit enough, or not jet lagged enough, to take part in the pre-match warm-up out on the pitch, but not involved in the match day squad. Thoughts around that?
I suppose not surprising, the fact he has gone to the other side of the world and not got back until pretty late in the day. You'd imagine, and to be involved against Livingston, probably a bit too late. It's frustrating that might be a common theme off the back of international breaks, I suppose. But as is football these days, when we're signing players from all corners of the world, that's just the price we're going to have to pay. And certainly encouraging we've gotten into Australian international in our ranks anyway, or two of them, in fact. And then Keskinan, I suppose, yeah, we probably should have expected this to happen. But again, he didn't impress me, and it's probably frustrating for him as well, because when he's come through HJK, he sort of made his name on that left wing, and then now he's on the right side. He doesn't quite look as comfortable, and I think Topi does require a wee bit of a rest, because as we mentioned, last season we thought he needs a rest. Plays football in the summer for the under-21s with Finland, starts the season, and then is away on international break with Finland as well. The poor guy's not caught a break, really. I don't know if that excuses some of the sort of decision-making, but I think him going to the bench, and then with that balance of Milanovic cutting in from the left and Carlson Milanovic on the right, Carlson on the left, sorry, then that could be beneficial long term. And if Toppy can get that rest and then maybe become that impact player off the bench for a wee while for the last 20 minutes, because he's still got frightening pace. And if you've had to go up against Jesper Carlson, for example, for 70 minutes, and then you've got someone like him who can blow by you in an instant, then that's certainly not a bad problem to have, and probably beneficial, because he doesn't look on his game right now. He's out of form, probably knackered, and it's a shame, really.
Yeah, he could actually be this season's Shayden Morris then, in terms of the impact player. But I think, even speaking of impact, could Milanovic have provided an impact off the bench on Saturday? You would like to think, regardless if he's travelled half the world, he could have come on and played 15, 20 minutes. In my opinion, I don't know. And I know Colin Gale, who's watching tonight, has said before on episodes around our sports scientists, and I'm sure they'll have had all the data about how effective he may or may not have been. I just thought in that last 10, 15 minutes when, look, with no disrespect to Dante, playing him out on the left wing, a natural winger out in that position may have benefited us better, and that was just the slight frustration for me. Obviously Milanovic as well, who I know got minutes today in that bounce game. So, we're not seeing the guys that we've signed as wingers coming on off the bench in that instance. And again, it felt like we could have played till midnight and still not scored. You just need to look at Danny Wilson's unbelievable block on Leighton Clarkson at the end that summed up our luck. See also Lazdic's shot off the post. But again, it's those little key moments. Could having a natural winger made a difference on another day? Yes, but unfortunately on Saturday, no.
Yeah, I do agree. And since you've mentioned Danny Bolvar, Glenn, not seen your notes, however, but what do you make of the news that's been in the P&J about Danny Bolvar surrounding the sort of contract situation versus not playing?
What have you done with the old Callum, and where is the unprepared Callum? Because that was not in my notes at all. You can tell who does more prep for these shows now. I'm not surprised. It'll be a bit, obviously, player talk and I'm sure agent talk. Certainly around the fact that he wants to play. That's really unsurprising, isn't it? Because every player wants to play football. They don't just be sitting on the bench and watching. So unfortunately, we're blessed with great options in the middle of the park. Someone tell Jimmy that, please, so we don't have to see Nielsen week in, week out. But, and the thing I was going to say, when he gets a chance, he's got to grab it. Every time he does get a chance, certainly as a sub, I feel he does have an impact and does take his opportunity. But, it could come back to, we've seen it already from Jimmy Talene saying it's, maybe not applying himself in training, managing minutes. We don't see what goes on at Cormack Park, and I guess that will have some sort of effect on the decision making. But, staying with midfields and contract situations, those that want to create stories will have noticed Leighton Clarkson signed with a new agent as well, the agent that Jim Goodwin has, who obviously just got him a new deal at Dundee United. Could that mysteriously mean that Leighton Clarkson's looking for a move elsewhere?
It's surely unlikely, given there's also chat that he's bought a house in an Aberdeen suburb, and the fact he's got a young kid as well. I imagine he would like to be settled, but then there was this talk of a bit of argy-bargy between him and a fan, I believe post-match, or maybe even during the match as well.
What do you make of that, by the way? So allegedly, Leighton Clarkson told a fan to shut the fuck up.
Without being privy to what was said to him, Leighton Clarkson, I guess it's probably, I don't mind it, to be honest, because at the same time, I would be annoyed if I was Leighton Clarkson before all this, because he should probably be starting against Livingston at home, in fairness. I don't mind it if he gives a bit back, if he's got a bit of fight about it, then fair enough. And as we say, we don't know what the fans said to him. Perhaps the fan said something out of pocket, in which case shut up's perfectly acceptable. However, if he's not and he's just having a go in general, then shut up's probably not warranted.
I know obviously sometimes with Leighton he does try a fancy flick too many or a pass that's not on. But I think I saw someone say on social media, how would you like it if someone came into your job off the street and just started shouting abuse at you for not doing your job correctly? You'd respond in the same manner. So, and I think, people are going to get on their high horse because, oh no, a football player that I was shouting at shouted back at me. At the end of the day, I like that from Leighton. I'd rather he shouted back and showed that little bit of passion and showed that he actually cared, that someone's having a go at him and standing up for himself, because too many times we've seen in this Aberdeen team that we're full of wet wipes at the end of the day. We don't have players that want to stand up and, feel that pride of wearing the shirt and fighting for the fans. Yeah, okay, you could argue he's fighting with a fan currently, but we're fighting for the same cause at the end of the day. And look, it's maybe a good thing we're doing this podcast on Wednesday night, not Saturday night, because it would have had a totally different tone had we sat here at 7 o'clock on Saturday night. And passions are going to be running high when results aren't going the way we want them to be.
No, yeah, I certainly do agree. Just if he can maybe take some of the fire and apply it to his game, then that would be even better. But yeah, I think it's a lot out of nothing, I suppose. And at the end of the day, we have no idea what actually was said. So who knows? But at least it takes us away from just speaking about the game for a bit. At least a little bit of fun.
Yeah, exactly. What's your thoughts then on the Polvara and Clarkson situations? With Clarkson's agent, not what we've just discussed.
With Clarkson, it could be a whole lot of nothing. What it could be is that maybe he wants to stay, and his previous agent was pushing for otherwise, and perhaps if he has just bought a house, then Clarkson would like to stay. That would certainly suggest. So perhaps it's that. I think we'll just have to see how that one plays out. And in terms of Polvara, I certainly understand if it is Polvara's agent, again, as we say, if in terms of, he should play when he has been given the chance to play, he's taken it, as you mentioned. There was previously comments from the manager about, the intensity is not quite there, but then I also don't think that adds up really with chances that other players have maybe got, with Yamphy coming straight in to start the game. Having only played 45 minutes against Bucky, so it doesn't quite add up there. It's a very, very odd one, because when given the chance, he does come on and he makes us a better team. And I know that there's maybe a problem with how do you get all the best technical players in your side, because then you'd probably be talking about Clarkson, Polvara, Palaversa perhaps, Carlson, Aushish, Stuart Armstrong. There's too many of them, but I mean, right now, who's shown the most out of that lot? It's Dante Polvara. So I'd like to see him play, and I don't blame him if he doesn't want to sign a new contract. If he's not getting that chance, I just hope he does end up extending his stay here and getting game time, because we've all seen what he can do. And of course, there was that chat about him going to Hibs previously, and that would be so heartbreaking. I think that would be worse than Junior Hoylett and Jamie McGrath for me.
It would definitely be worse. And I think, he is also at risk of falling into that category. And, there are going to be fans that don't rate Dante as highly as we do on this podcast. And he is going to fall into that category of a player that gets better the less he plays. So I think, he just has to continue doing what he's doing and show that consistency when he comes on. And hopefully he's afforded with that chance. Hopefully it's just not a reverse of what we saw, as Graham Gibbs says, when we all shouted for Morris to start, and when he did, it didn't really impress, and he was better as an impact sub. So does Polvara get us game as starting in the middle, and then we make our own minds up? And I guess this is where we do have to trust the manager with his decision making, although, as we've said, sometimes it's persistent when Nielsen is pushing that trust, which we'll come on to. On the whole, though, Callum, as I said, for me, the game felt dull. Certainly not going to live long in the memory. Chances, whilst few and far between, we did create. As I said, Jensen having that shot in the first half. Actually, Jensen probably having the best couple of efforts, flashing a couple of shots past the far post. Aushish, again, I'll pass to you, given you'll have a better view of that in Section S. Should he do better with his opportunity in the first half? Goes out for a corner. and we've discussed Jesper Carlson's attempt as well. Second half didn't really have anything clear cut aside from that superb Danny Wilson block from Leighton Clarkson. Some people maybe say he should have lifted it a bit more, but I mean, I don't think you can account for some excellent defending. I think you've got to credit where it's due. I did see someone say it was a comical miss that Yengi would get slaughtered from, and I can tell you they must not sit as close to that chance as we do, because it was excellent defending, and obviously then Lazetic hitting the post. So going to those chances from the first half, but overall we were creating, just not clinical or producing that quality.
No, and that's sort of, well, I don't know. I was going to say it's story of the season, but probably not, because it was an improvement certainly in the creating sense. You mentioned the Yengi one just while we're at it. How they never spotted that was a corner, I have no idea. I know you were a bit surprised, but you were at literally the opposite end of the ground, so maybe that's fair enough. When you're 20 yards from it, you should be able to see it, Nick Walsh.
Well, and it was funny because we were arguing that, and Ian was like, it must be a corner because Section S are going mental. And I was like, well, the lower deck aren't reacting at all, so I'm not sure. And then you watch Sports Scene back and you're like, fucking hell, how'd they miss that?
Yeah, it was a great save, actually. I suppose the only criticism maybe there for Jensen is that perhaps if he lifts it, Priya doesn't quite get a hand to it, but at the same time, it's your right back up in that position, so you can't really ask for too much more. The fact he got it on target and should have had a corner out of it is probably enough. For the most part, I do agree that it was ponderous, sort of dull, and pretty boring. What was the other chance you sort of made? Oh, Aushish. Yeah, had a pretty good view of that one, and at the time I thought, I've not even seen it back, but I was thinking like he should hit the target regardless. But I was wondering if it was sort of similar to, I think Morgan Gibbs-White had a chance on the same day. I watched the game earlier and it just reminded me of that, where the defender's just leaning on him, and it just like sort of puts him off balance and makes it go wide. And I wonder if it was similar to that. But regardless, if he hits the target, like it's probably in the back of the net from that sort of range. So that was a little bit disappointing. And then, yeah, it seemed to get worse sort of in that second half until the final few minutes. Again, I totally agree with it. It was a fantastic block from Danny Wilson, and it's frustrating because we were pointing out, the pace of Danny Wilson and Ryan McGowan, but then the experience in it, he knew exactly what he was doing there, and it was phenomenal defending from him. Probably wouldn't expect much else, really. And the Lazetic one is just, for me, that's so unlucky because, how many times you say it's 3 inches or something the other way, it goes in off the post, and it's an incredible end to the game for us, providing we would have held on to win it, which, given the current set of circumstances, not 100% certain that was the case. But it did impress me the way he took the chance and the power he got behind that shot. As I say, just unfortunate it didn't come off the inside the post and go in. But other than that, there was, as you mentioned, a few balls across the box where there's just nobody there to poke it home. And there was one especially when Nisbet had gone off, and I thought, for goodness sake, if Nisbet was still in the park, you can guarantee he would have been on the spot there to just prod it home. But on the whole, certainly better in terms of chances created, but still just so frustrating with the amount of chances that we can't take one. And then between them, there's a few of them where you think they should have done better between them. If one of them had found the back of the net, it's probably enough to win the game. Whacked my mic. And we're certainly a lot more positive than maybe we are right now.
Yeah, and I know the chance you're speaking about in the second half. I can't remember who it was, if it was Keskinan or not, that drilled the ball across. And I was actually a bit annoyed at Lazetic because I felt he just stood and watched. But there was also a couple of times where I think it was Carlson was going over to the main stand side to take the corners, delivered perfect balls into the box, but there was nobody in red attacking it. And again, just kind of sums up the times where we do produce that little bit of quality into the box, there's nobody there. But when we don't, there is somebody there. But again, there is signs that the team has the quality, it's just not gelled or it's not clicked yet. And I know a lot of you are mentioning that in the comments tonight on the show. I've got them saved. We'll bring that on when we come on to speak about the manager in a little bit. Just want your thoughts on Stuart Armstrong and the impact he had as well. I know you've touched on them briefly, but a little bit more on the Lazetic and Nisbet performances. A lot of people in the comments, David McLennan asking anyone fancy Nisbet and Lazetic up front together. The musical box saying Lazetic seemed more the type of a striker we need than Nisbet, who didn't look particularly fit. Keith was saying that he was more impressed by Lazetic compared to Nisbet. I thought Nisbet looked good, caused a bit of problems. I do think he might work better in the pair. I actually, to be fair, apart from his chance where he hits the post, my personal opinion, wasn't overly impressed by Lazetic, mainly because I thought he was a walking red card for large periods. His first involvement was flying into a challenge and then needlessly flew into a challenge as a Livingston player, cleared the ball. And had he made contact, he would have been off within 5 minutes of coming on. Thankfully, he calmed himself down. But interested to hear your thoughts on the performance of those three players.
Well, actually, while we're talking about Lazetic and his sort of bit of motor madness when he came on, it was weird because Armstrong also came on and got a booking really, really quickly, and it looked like they were just so keen to make an impact. But I thought it's two really needless sort of yellow cards, but a bit of bite perhaps that maybe we were lacking. Although I'm sure Lazetic did the same when he came on against was it Falkirk he came on against as well. Not quite half time, perhaps. I can't quite remember. I've tried to block it out of my mind.
He won a free kick straight away.
Yeah, but then I'm sure he got booked really early on as well. And I don't know if it's maybe just that 27, perhaps with Sam Cosgrove getting sent off on his game debut against Celtic. But he doesn't seem shy to put himself about, which I don't mind. But he needs to chill out a little bit on these sort of late trying to block clearance when it's just sort of unnecessary and getting a yellow card. But I don't know. I think we didn't really create a lot for Kevin Nisbet or for Lazetic. And I said with Lazetic, it was really unlucky. He didn't score in the end with that one. And it's difficult to judge strikers when that's the case. I think Kevin Nisbet's link-up play certainly looked impressive for me. And Lazetic's sort of willing running and being able to put himself about. Certainly impressive as well, and you'd hope that just with more minutes, the pair of them will only continue to get better. But yeah, I do certainly agree with Graham Gibb that Lazetic basically needs to have a word with him, and he needs to calm down. With Graham thinking that he's trying too hard to win the crowd over, and on Stuart Armstrong, I remember he gave away the ball on the edge of the box, and I thought, oh, that's instant PTSD from the famous one. But his willingness to drive with the ball and the quality in doing so, I really did like. Other than that, we didn't see an awful lot in terms of maybe his more creative elements, but him picking up the ball deep in midfield and just driving us forward when there's really not a lot of willingness from anyone else to do that was certainly encouraging. And you would hope before long he's in the starting 11, because I think he can certainly make a difference to us. And yeah, as I said earlier, Lord knows we need it right now.
Yeah. And I think on Stuart Armstrong as well, as the musical box points out, he made a couple of very accurate long diagonal passes. Was picking out Clarkson or Gyamfi on the left wing and then spraying it to Jensen as well, really putting it on the spot for them to control it and then get the ball into the box. But it was his drive that kind of impressed me most. I remember speaking last week about, is he energetic? Is he not? And I think he showed why the club have called him an energetic midfielder for the lack of minutes he's had this season, let alone in terms of a pre-season as well with Sheffield Wednesday. So he'll only get better, and hopefully the team will only get better as well. Where do you stand on the comments then that, we do have a good squad, the nucleus of a good squad anyway? It's very easy to say we need to be patient because both of us are notoriously impatient when it comes to results. Where do you stand on that?
I think we do have a good squad. Coming off after the back of the transfer window, and certainly in last week's episode, I think we were both, and a lot of people in the comments were certainly in agreement that the squad looks so much better now on paper. It's just about the manager finding the correct balance, the correct partnerships, with one in particular partnership really needing to be found in the middle of the park for me. And I hope, I think with the quality in there, it's got to click at some point, and it's just really also probably for the manager's sake, vital that it's sooner rather than later. these games, Falkirk at home, Livingston at home, Motherwell in the league coming up, and now Tannadice in there as well. We'd have been hoping that these games, maybe discounting Hearts because we never win there, and Celtic because it's Celtic, that we'd be able to get points on the board before these Thursdays, Sundays come about and things do get a bit trickier. It's not happened. So we really need to start picking up results now. And of course, it's the Cup this weekend, and a win in the Cup, whilst no points on the board for that one, would really improve the mood, I think. And we sort of said about the Livingston game, it didn't matter about how it came about. We wanted to see a great performance, but regardless, if we get a win, that'll just improve things massively. For example, going into the semi-final of the Cup ahead of a nice trip to Tannadice in the evening could certainly improve things for us. I just hope it clicks sooner rather than later, because the quality is there. We've mentioned Armstrong. We've now got Lazetic and Nisbet as striking options. Jesper Carlson, who looks a cut above. Ashish, he shows it in fits and starts, but when he's on it, I think we have seen that he's probably could be too good to be here as well. It's just that consistency. There's midfielders there. If we can find the balance.
I don't even know if we've seen it fully yet from Ashish over the course of a game in fits and starts, in glimpses, but
no, there's no consistency there right now from what I can see. And if he can find that, then we've certainly got a player. It's just about finding the partnership in midfield, I think, could help us massively. In fact, it's vital, because it's whatever we're doing right now, whatever we seem to try, doesn't work. And you'd like to think, out of the players that they've signed, there should be a pairing there that should work. In fact, most pairings should work, given the amount of sort of research and data analysis and all that nonsense that goes into signing these players. We should be able to find a balance, but we can't right now. And it's certainly vital that we do. I think there's been some talk about when do things sort of turn on the manager, and it's difficult because of course we did win the Scottish Cup, and people saying that papered over the cracks. Winning the Scottish Cup's the wall, pretty much, to be honest, because what else can we really hope for other than winning the Scottish Cup? And even then, it's once in a bloody blue moon, and he's done that. However, it's the league form for me that's just very questionable. We went on that incredible run. That's now about a year ago, and since then we've been turgid and probably lucky to even finish 5th last season. So it's got to turn around. I think it will, with that quality, but I just hope it's sooner rather than later. Honestly, for my own personal mood as well, more than anything else, because it wasn't entertaining. It's not entertaining. I'm not getting the enjoyment of even, it was rubbish, but we won. I need something here. I need something here, lads. Please give me something this Saturday.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. And I go back to, I think, last season where we were questioned for, saying Jimmy's trying to install an entertaining brand of football or an exciting brand of football. There's nothing exciting about our style of football at present. And it'll really be interesting to see what that looks like this weekend when Motherwell come to town, because their manager is also known for an exciting brand of football, and their fans currently are, whilst they're seeing an exciting brand of football, have not yet seen that turn into wins, as you pointed out to me before recording, and I can tell you've done the research because you correctly identified it as 5 draws, not the 4 that I'd written down. So they'll be coming up here equally as confident, wanting to see that result, and I think it's this weekend is really huge for Jimmy Talleen, for the football club, as William Miller pointed out on Sports Sound as well. It's that opportunity to get back to Hampden, give us a little bit of feel-good factor before a trip to Tannadice, and Dundee United look very good this season, judging on what I've seen from them and results so far. We then, obviously, as you pointed out, go away to Motherwell. A late kickoff on that Saturday. Anything can happen in these games against Motherwell. And then, of course, Shakhtar come to town. So there is, if you want to be a real negative Nancy, the possibility that we're still bottom of the table come the end of the month, going into the next international break. But if you're a glass half full guy, kind of like David McLennan, who points out we're only 5 points off Hibs in third. So depends if you want to look up the table or look down the table to see nobody behind us. We'll set up your mindset on that. But I do feel that we do badly need, and as you said, you know, any sort of win against Livingston would have been welcomed. The fact that we haven't scored against either of the newly promoted sides at home in back-to-back games and taken 1 point, given the start, you know, those tricky games you said, for me is unacceptable, because we're behind that 8 ball. We've not even got into the run of Thursday, Sunday games. Yet this weekend we're gonna play Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. So and then you've got the Thursday, Sunday game starting afterwards. So we're already giving ourselves a fixture pile up, if you want to call it. But these players should be fit enough. We had the bounce game today against Ross County, where allegedly won 3-0 with Yengi, Ambrose and McLean being on the score sheet. I saw Colin Gale put that information into the comments. So we'll see how that comes. But I just wonder for the weekend, we'll touch on it briefly because we put a poll up at the weekend. You mentioned it there as well, how important this weekend is for Jimmy Tilleen. You mentioned credit in the bank for winning the Scottish Cup, and that is a realistic opportunity for us as Silverware. This weekend is also realistically the only other opportunity we have at Silverware. We're 3 games away from having another trophy to celebrate, but given that the league form is only 5 wins in 31 games, it's alarming. And I saw someone try to compare it to the fact that Ross County sat Don Cowie after 5 wins in 30 league games. It's 2 different scenarios completely. One didn't win the Scottish Cup, one got relegated and could find themselves relegated again if they didn't sort that. So we put a poll up on our Twitter page at RTG Podcast, RTG_podcast, before Callum tries to correct me on that one. 991 of you responded to the poll that went up. It was thoughts on Thielen. Replies may be used on the podcast this week, and the options were under pressure, still got credit in the bank, or decide after next week. That obviously being this game coming up against Motherwell. So of the 991 of you that voted, 55% said that he is under pressure. Now, again, albeit this was a knee-jerk reaction, I'm sure, on the back of the result of the weekend, 28% said he's still got credit in the bank, and 17% they will decide after the weekend. Now, Callum, you might point out that I didn't put a glaringly obvious option in there because, again, we might have seen some mixed results, but there was no option there for him to go now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there is elements? I'll come on to the comments because there is for sure, but a growing element that are getting frustrated with the manager currently?
I think there certainly is, and I can understand why, absolutely, because you mentioned it there, 5 league wins in 31. That is not good enough, and thank God we won the Scottish Cup. To be fair, but if you took that out of it and 5 wins in 31 with the money we've spent, and okay, we've taken a lot in as well, but with the money we've spent to have gotten to the position where we were last season after that incredible run, and then I've chucked it away so badly, and to still been lucky to finish 5th, mainly because everyone else was crap below us, it's not good viewing. It's certainly not good viewing, and my sort of answer to that poll would be kind of a combination of all 3, because you can certainly make points that he's under pressure, because we're already talking about we'll see after the next game, so that means there's pressure on the next game. Mm-hmm. And of course he does have that credit in the bank for that Scottish Cup win as well, and I get we've taken in a lot of players after that, and there's been a high turnover, I think 13 in, 13 out, and it will take time for that. But Dave McLennan mentioned in the comments, it's something I talked about, I can't remember who to the other day as well, but it stems from an uncooked pre-season, not enough games, and a late show on recruitment. I certainly agree. I don't think there was enough of that for all those new bodies to gel. We didn't look sharp, certainly again, that Hearts game. We're still not clicking, and we should have had 2-3 more games in that time. And I get we finished later because we were in that Scottish Cup. And players maybe need a little bit more time to recover after that. But we should have had a few more games to get things gelling and to get things improved, because right now it is so dull and there isn't a lot of signs to show that we're getting an awful lot better. I think Livingston, as we've mentioned, was a little bit better in that we made some chances, but at the end of the day, still came away with just 1 point against a newly promoted team at home, and 1 point out of a potential six in the last two games. That's not good enough in any league, really, is it? Two teams coming up, and we're meant to be one of the big dogs, and we take 1 point from those games. It's not good enough. So there does have to certainly be improvement, but I can certainly understand why people can't see that that's going to happen, because what evidence really is there?
And the frustration around that is the arrogance or stubbornness, maybe, of Jimmy Tillene to persist in playing his favourites, as we'll call Dennis, in this scenario. But as West Coast Don said, look, guys, we have good players. Once it clicks, we'll scalp a few teams. We do have good players, but it's that frustration waiting for it to click. Colin Gale asking for fans to be patient. There was really good signs on Saturday. Again, if we bring down to some of the comments that just on the back of what we're discussing just now, Peter Lees is currently 50-50 on Jimmy, but a loss this weekend will change. I do think, you listen to the boos ring out at full time on Livingston for those that were still there come the final whistle. There is a change in the tide of support, and Willie Miller mentioned that from the Falkirk game to fans sticking with the team till the bitter end. But it was a mass exodus come the full-time whistle again on Saturday, as it was at the Falkirk game as well. Ross Duncan definitely getting frustrated, but not wanting his head on a stick just yet. But if things don't improve over the next 3 games, he'll definitely be looking over his shoulder with the money he's spent. On that point, that last point there from Ross, how much now pressure is Jimmy under? Because he is building his team. The board has backed him. He's brought in his own players. Now the results need to follow, but currently aren't.
Yeah, the results certainly do need to follow. And there's also, I suppose, there's been a lot of talk a lot of the time when around sort of this 3-year project. But you would think over a year into that, as I said, we'd be beating newly promoted teams at home at the minimum, and that's not what's happening right now. So I do think that there is pressure building. I do hope very much so that he turns it around. And I think, well, look at the squad. We should be turning it around. We certainly should be. And it just for whatever reason right now is not. And we've mentioned it a lot about the centre midfielders, the sort of persistence with Nelson, or at least the persistence with Nelson and Shinnie together, when really, certainly in games like Livingston, there should only be one of them in there. There's no need for both. There should be one at max in there. It's things like that are just a bit like, why is he persisting with him? And it's like, I know he's sort of one of Jimmy's men. He's worked with him before and he's brought him in. But whatever the stats say, regardless. But the eye test, goodness me, Jesus Christ, it's not working, is it? And it's odd because when he first came in, I really quite liked Nelson, and then it seemed to be it tapered off, and then he was out for ages, and I thought, oh well, maybe he's had a rest after a long season because he played games before he joined us, and I thought, well, maybe he'll get back to his best. But if anything, he looks worse. I can't understand it. But look, it's a results game, and we've said it before, but we're not getting nearly enough of them. But if you ask me at 5 o'clock on Saturday and we're through to the semi-final at Hampden, then things will be right and rosy once again, and I'll certainly be excited about going to Tannadice. But it's definitely going to be difficult this weekend because it's been mentioned that Jens Bertol Asku plays
I'm
a
glad you
certain
went
style.
for it because I was not attempting it.
Thank you. He plays a certain style of football that might actually suit us in terms of they're going to come down here and try and play. Of course, they've got great players that can hurt us as well. But if they're going to come and play, then perhaps we won't see so much of that ponderous build-up, and it will be quicker because there will be that space in behind to go and get them. But at the same time, that also raises the question, why is there not a plan B of breaking these teams down? And for so long, as far as I can remember, we've always struggled, regardless of who's the manager, breaking teams down when they come up and make it difficult for us. And you really hope with this squad of players, we'd find a fucking way to try and do that.
But the problem is when you know a team's going to come in and make themselves hard to break down, why are you playing 2 defensive-minded midfielders in there along with 4 at the back? It's just you're beating yourself with a stick before you've even started. As Michael Taylor says, very frustrating. Definitely these results can't continue. It's gone on far too long for me, but the board will continue to back him. You know, Alan Burrows and the board commenting on the fact it's a 3-year project. How long do you give him on that? West Coast Dons keeping the faith currently. Change takes time from youth to the first team, new staff, lots of new players, getting players that fit the manager's vision. I'm not happy, but I'm sick of sacking managers. I think it's probably one of the most level-headed responses we're going to have to the situation.
I think nail on the head, though, probably. Nail on the head, probably. Because there has been an awful lot of change. And I am also sick of managers, but then we're also just back to square one if he did go, which I'm certainly not advocating in any way.
And again, when you listen to Jesper Carlson, a big reason why he's here is an opportunity to work under Jimmy Tillin again. So players of that quality we potentially miss out on with losing the manager. Graham Gibbs come up with a solution. Wants to know where the nearest lock to AB24 is. Just get them down the beach and get them running up and down the dunes that worked for Fergie back in the day. Or Mark Robertson's asking if the Bonaccord baths are open again, and that keeps it local, I suppose. If we look at some of the responses over on social media, because of course not everyone can join us live on these podcasts, Risey replied, has to be under huge pressure. Honestly believe he's the right man, but his over-resilience on 3 players is hurting us. We now have good enough players to give Keskinan a rest. No reason for why Nielsen and Shinnie should be playing defensive midfielders together. Old man in Havana said Jimmy now has his team in place. However, so many changes, including 4 who've just arrived, they'll take time to gel together. I feel he should be given until the end of the first phase of games, but he needs to lose his favourites and adapt his style from solely a 4-2-3-1. Mark Emsley, man's digging his own grave. Someone please forward him the definition of insanity. Signs have been there for all to see since early this year. No number of new players doing the same thing is going to work. No purpose or intensity. Graham Monroe said his time is up. The cup was nothing but papering over the cracks. People say no plan B, which is true, but there's also no plan A. Has no clue what a starting 11 should be and is too loyal to players who aren't anywhere near the mark. See Nielsen, Tope and Jensen. So there is a bit of a mixed reaction in there. Chris also saying serious pressure. With the state of the Glasgow 2 right now, we should be gunning for them, especially after the high of the Scotch Cup win. Instead, we're absolutely blowing it, and it's down to team selection and tactics. Investment has been made. This is on Jimmy.
Sorry, I was on mute there as I was just enjoying hearing the comments. I think there wasn't really one there that I necessarily disagreed with, to be honest. I thought a lot of them were rather measured, to be fair, given how quickly after the Livingston game the poll went up and with those replies. It's hard to disagree with much of that, really, is it, Glenn? I think certainly the comments about over-reliance on those 3 players mentioned is fair enough, because I think it's there for all to see. It's not working for certainly Keskinan, and Nilsson right now, they could do with a wee bit of time on the bench. And with Jensen, I suppose it's difficult when, we're then backed into a corner with Nicky Devlin suspended. I think Jensen, for me, a lot of what he was certainly better on Saturday against Livingston, but for me, a lot of it is still just a bit too slow, and him himself is pretty slow. But he was better, and there was so much on Saturday that he was wide open on the right in acres of space, and the ball never went across to him, which was baffling. And you mentioned, the chance and putting the ball across the box, but there was a lot there that I found myself agreeing with. I don't want mass hysteria. Ideally, we just win on Saturday though, and we can turn things around. But I've been saying that for quite a long time.
Yeah, win on Saturday and you'll have us back winning every trophy available, knowing you. But just a final couple of comments again, some measured ones. Stuart Miller saying he's under pressure for the investment made. The fact we can't score against two teams most thought would be battling relegation is poor. For Stuart, he has till the international break to improve things. Red Pfeiffer 03 says, is 15 months long enough? Do we keep sacking managers or allow one time to build? And Martin Fruston said, Thielen is to be trusted. We need to understand that this whole switching managers every season doesn't work. Maybe trusting JT is the answer. Says, maybe Aberdeen understand Thielen is just like getting work done in your house. It has to get worse before it gets better. I mean, it's been a year of worse results, so hopefully the good times are coming soon.
It has been, again, certainly measured, and I think they're probably the ones who have been around the block, I feel like, a little bit more, and have seen some of the other shit that we've had to deal with, the club's had to deal with over the years. And I do agree, and that's why I'm saying, I don't want anything to happen, and I do want us to turn it around. That the merry-go-round, we saw that going from Glass to Goodwin to Robson and then Warnock, and then that was a shambles, and it was terrible. And Jimmy Tulin has given us all we could ever ask from him in terms of winning the Scottish Cup. It doesn't really feel like it would ever get better than that. And I do think the problem is with the lack of improvement we're seeing. If we are seeing improvement, then yeah, fair enough, you've got something to hold on to. But the frustration's building because it doesn't seem to be getting much better, and he's doing the same things that don't seem to work. But I think going from the start again, when now we'd end up with having a load of players that the manager doesn't want, or maybe wouldn't want because he's not signed them and it might not fit his style of play. I don't think it would be sensible to go and scrap it and start again. And just I hope to God that it gets turned around very quickly so I can be happy at 5 o'clock on Saturdays from now on.
And obviously we hope that starts this weekend as well. And as testing as it is, and like I said, I think it's a total different podcast had we been recording Saturday, Sunday, possibly even Monday. Obviously you weren't available. We were both busy last night, so a few days to calm down and cool off. As hopefully some of you will feel this has been relatively measured and not as certainly negative as many thought. I was enjoying the fact that folk think I have an obsession with wanting Jimmy Tulin sacked, and certainly hope it doesn't come across that way. And I've always been someone that backs him, and as Scott McLennan also pointed out at the weekend as well, for as much as people will look to blame the manager, we can't blame the manager for the players missing the chances. That's also, the players have to take some responsibility and accountability when things aren't going right, as well as the manager.
Yeah, no, I certainly do agree. And I think had, let's say, Lazatic's one gone in at the end, things of course would have been very different, and we'd have been looking at all the other chances that we squandered as, oh, well, yeah, we won, we're happy, but that could have been 3 or 4, and we're certainly looking at it at a difficult light instead of how the hell have none of them managed to find the back of the net, what is wrong with us, kind of thing. So, football fans, as we say all the time, and as is certainly applicable to me and probably to you, Glenn, let's be fair, we're a fickle bunch and things can turn around very quickly, and let's just pray that that's the bloody case. I might have to turn to the Lord above at this rate, because nothing else seems to be bloody working.
No, but as Colin Gale says, you youngsters haven't seen some of the rubbish he's seen over the decades. But I mean, Callum, given how old you are, and I've been supporting Aberdeen for 23 years, there's not been much success aside from the League Cup win, a couple of European runs, and then that Scottish Cup win last season to celebrate. So, God, what Colin's seen must have been really bad in comparison.
Oh yeah, but surely then he must have been around for a lot of the great times as well. So I guess you've got to take the rough with the smooth at that point. But yeah, and you say there, as you mentioned, we've not had a lot to celebrate, and Jimmy Clean has given us the best of that, and so we've got to keep that in mind also.
Absolutely, and hopefully he can lead us to more cup success this weekend. Looking for cup win number 14 during his Aberdeen career so far. As you've already mentioned, Motherwell come to Pittodrie with a noted exciting brand of football, but yet to produce victory in league competition. Block E for the first time since Langfield chucked the ball in the net up at Pittodrie, looked to be travelling to Pittodrie, and the Motherwell fans seem to be coming up the road in numbers, which will make for a good occasion, I'm sure. It looks like a tough game ahead this weekend. What's your hopes and expectations?
Well, I hope we get a proper cup tie, a nice entertaining game of football, because it does feel like it's been a while since we've had that. And I think this game does have the makings for that. Also, a little bit of stoppable force versus movable object, given the fact that they can't get a win for love for nor money either. But I suppose the difference is they're actually scoring goals. I think the fact I watched the only full game Motherwell game I've seen so far this season is their game against Rangers, and that was obviously very early on in their new managers. Career, still very, very early on at Motherwell. But they looked to play some really, really nice stuff. And I think, as I mentioned, that could also benefit us in a way. Of course, they've got great players that can hurt us. Mazwanizi, Said, is that how you call it? They've now got Regan Charles Cook as well. And the last time he was in Scotland, he was very, very good. They've got players to hurt us. Callum Slattery, I think, might be out injured, but he's not played for a wee while. But I've not seen anything on it about whether he could be back in time. But they've got players that can hurt us. But on the plus side is if we can be robust, and that is a big if at the back, then there should be that space, and it should be an open game of football. And we should see. Hopefully, I'm hoping just a sort of proper basketball match, end-to-end entertainment that results in Aberdeen going to Hampden. That would be the ideal scenario. That's my hopes. Maybe not expectations, though. But I'm really hoping for a proper, exciting cup tie, and I think we need it. And probably Motherwell fans need it as well, given they're probably very frustrated with five draws in a row.
And I think, this weekend does have the potential to really have that old school cup classic feel about it. As you said, the style of play that Motherwell bring possibly opens up the space, but for us to utilise it, we can't have a ponderous midfield. That midfield has to have the likes of Leighton Clarkes and Ante Palaversa, those forward-thinking players in there, potentially even Stuart Armstrong, those players that are going to find the balls in behind into the pockets of spaces that we can exploit this Motherwell team. And I think for as exciting as Motherwell have been in terms of goal scoring, they've also been extremely vulnerable defensively. Now, that's all well and good when you think about it, but then you see how poor we've been in front of goal. Albeit last time out in this competition, we scored 3 against Morton. So hopefully that's where our goal scoring continues in this competition. And it's such a big game. As you say, Motherwell will be thinking the exact same, not one in the league, chance to get to Hampden. We've not scored in the league, not won in the league, chance to get to Hampden, chance to give us a little bit of confidence before we go into that, for me, a tricky game at Tannadice, which again, failure to win continues to put pressure on our league form. Gives us a little bit of a lift ahead of Shakhtar, which is 2 weeks on Thursday, 2 weeks tomorrow at time of recording. So, that game is coming round thick and fast as well. It'll play into my theory that Jimmy Tilley is a cup specialist if he wins on Saturday as well. But do you think we'll see as much as 7 changes from the team that started against Livingston?
No, I don't think we will see as much as 7 changes. I would hope to see 3. Milanovic coming in for Keskinan, Armstrong for Aushish, okay, maybe 4, and then Nilsson out for Palversa, Clarkson, Bovara, pick any, and then maybe Shinnie out for the other ones as well. But I'm certainly less bothered about Graham Shinnie at this moment in time. But I think we won't see as many changes as 7 this time. And one thing I forgot to mention about it being like a good feeling like it could be a proper cup tie. There's also the added element of that. The Motherwell manager, also him and Talene have crossed paths before during their time in Scandinavia as well, which also adds a little bit of excitement as well to this, and sort of hopefully would only add to what's hoping to be a spectacle. However, we've not seen an awful lot of those of late.
No, we haven't, and I think you're right. That does add a different dimension, a different element to the game as well. I do agree there's got to be changes in that midfield. You're probably looking at those 2 coming out. I know Mark Robertson was looking for 3 changes. I think Tope would be the obvious one, as you've said, for Milanovic as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another change, a 4th change for me. And he goes and changes that centre-back pairing again with Europe in mind, trying to test out that pairing that will inevitably be put ahead for the Shakhtar game, with Alfie currently not being in the squad as well. John Kilo saying you'd be surprised if Oshish was dropped. It'll be interesting, but I think changes are for sure in the offing as well. Staying on the theme of changes as we wrap up this episode, and thank you very much to everyone that is continuing to stick with us here on the live this evening or this afternoon, because I know we've got quite a few of our American contingent joining us on the show this evening as well. Stephen Gunn departs the club after 25 years of service. Callum, a man roundly criticised on this podcast, I think it's fair to say. But you can't argue with the level of service given to the club. Parting ways after the summer transfer window and the search for a new sporting director goes on. Thoughts on that change, and maybe also a bit of thoughts on the sudden timing? Any suspicions?
Yeah, to be honest, I thought it was a bit of an odd one. I didn't expect it. I don't think anyone expected it, and I know the statement sort of made it seem like, it was Stephen Gunn's decision, and now this is honestly 100% based off absolutely nothing. But my initial reaction was like, well, they're not going to change the manager, so they have to change something else. I don't know if that's the case or not. Perhaps it was, Stephen Gunn's been around the club for 25 years and he's decided it's time to move on, in which case, fair enough. I honestly don't know an awful lot about what he did or didn't do around the club, because as director of football, but then it seemed to be made to sound like he dealt with more like the negotiations rather than identifying of players and things like that. A bit odd for that to be the case in that position, but look, he gave 25 years to the club that we all love, so I guess there's got to be well wishes for that. But I do hope now we can get someone in that is a good, proper fit man. Get someone in there who's been around the game and has an experience in that role and can hopefully help us take us forward, because we do need it right now. And if we're not going to change the manager, then we probably do need to have a look at other things that perhaps could improve us. And I think getting someone with a footballing background should hopefully help.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how quickly that position is filled. Again, given the timing of the news, reading maybe between the lines of the statement, I wasn't sure if there was a bit of pushing or he jumped before he was pushed. But again...
Sorry, yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, because if they said in the statement that they spoke about it in the summer, but then why is he? I know it's not quite yet that he's leaving, but then surely they would have, before they even announce it or something, they would have someone there ready to take the reins if they knew about this a long time coming and they're announcing it now. Bit odd. Carry on.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with that as well. The discussions have obviously happened over the summer, but it feels a bit strange because Stephen Gunn was put out whilst the team were in Portugal to front the plan for the summer. So again, people maybe want to spoke about recruitment. I know Derek's not necessarily heavily involved in Steve's not heavily involved in the recruitment side of things in terms of identifying, as you said, it is more down to the negotiating side of things, but the timing feels very strange. And as Mark Robertson says, I don't know how I'm going to pronounce that last name.
Lutz Pfannenstiel.
Right, we'll go with that. Seems to be a name going around. Derek Ray posted about him today. And as I put in our group chat as well, it was Aberlytics that posted about him as well. The tweet from that account said, interesting that when the Germany company was doing a review of our operations last year, they got help from Lutz Pfannenstiel, who was the sporting director at St. Louis City, and he was sacked in August. We're also currently looking for a sporting director. And as if by magic, Lutz posted on his own Twitter page today saying it's time to say goodbye from Club Blueprints in Clayton to Austin as underdogs to Energizer Park's opening day and a record-breaking season. Leading St. Louis City has been an honour of a lifetime. Thank you to the ownership, staff, players and the best fans in the MLS. And as Mark said, Derek Ray has picked up on this and quoted that tweet from Lutz, saying, Lutz, who I've known and worked with for a long time, is a natural builder. Selfishly, would love to see him land in Scottish football next, as I feel his outside perspective would benefit our game as a sporting director. Plus, he's great at explaining his ideas in the public sphere. Now, again, you can put 2 and 2 together with Derek Ray's connection to not only the MLS, but also Aberdeen. Maybe we're coming up with 5. Maybe we're spoiling Dave Cormack and Alan Burrow's plan to announce Lutz in the near future.
Maybe. But, Alan's had the chance to come on and tell us his plan and has not done it as of yet on this podcast. So, Alan, come on, get yourself sorted, son. I don't know. When you sent that, I thought, someone's sacked by some MLS club that aren't even one of the good ones. Well, why would we want that? Why would we want him involved? But if he was involved with this German lot that looked at our structure and things, and that seemed to be very highly regarded, and he was brought in by them to get involved, then that, I guess, is a good sign. Of course, Derek Ray will know a lot more about him than I do right now. So I guess that's a glowing review from Derek Ray, and the fact he's kind of maybe like, I'd love to see him get involved in Scottish football, and the fact that he also mentioned about, he's good at explaining his ideas in the public when transparency has been a big thing that, Dave Cormack and the boys have gone for in the past as well. That's maybe another little Easter egg there for you. You never know.
Or, again, playing into the Easter egg theory, the German, whatever they were called, played into this remodeling of our youth development. Lutz was involved in said overview. Mm-hmm. We've suddenly changed our development plan and structure, which and that kind of got announced beginning of August, end of July. We've not seen the new role being formally announced yet as well. So,
yeah. However, I did look into some of his background. He was, let me be clear, this was via his Wikipedia page, so we'll also not take it as 100% gospel. Previously involved in some sort of match fixing thing, which he was not convicted of. So that's good. He's not a match fixer. That's good. And also, there was a bit of controversy around his appointment of Olaf Melberg. If you remember him, he used to play for Aston Villa at St. Louis City, because basically he came in and did terribly, and then fans were raging because it was obviously him or others that appointed him. And then perhaps that maybe led to his departure. I'm not sure. So the fact it's not glowing reviews from the MLS is a little bit of a concern.
Well, I think we can maybe take our tinfoil hats off for now and go and put some more pins on the board and work out some conspiracy theories. Hopefully,
it's always sunny. Like if I just turn the camera around, I just like this, like Charlie with all the stuff in the background. I'm in my mum's study, and she actually has a pin board behind this laptop. So guess what I'm going to do once this episode downloads to put onto audio.
hopefully, in more serious matters, though, we do have something more positive on the pitch to speak about when we reconvene. We'll look to do an episode either Sunday or Monday night, depending on both our schedules, because, of course, we do have that trip to Tannadice thrown in midweek, which does mean it's a double episode next week here on the podcast. So, as always, thank you very much to those who've tuned in here live on the YouTube channel. Leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel as well. Follow us on your audio platform of choice. Until next time, we'll see you then.